How countries get rich, the secrets behind national wealth. Hey Luxons, have you ever wondered why some countries are incredibly rich while others struggle in poverty? Why does Switzerland, a landlocked nation with almost no natural resources, enjoy one of the highest standards of living in the world, while countries with abundant oil, minerals, and fertile land remain economically stagnant? What separates the billion-dollar economies from those that can't seem to get off the ground? This is not just about money. It's about power, strategy, policy, and sometimes luck. In today's episode of Luxona, we dive deep into the mechanics behind national wealth. We'll uncover the historical forces, economic choices, and global patterns that decide whether a country thrives or merely survives. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Foundations of Wealth, Geography and Resources. Many people believe wealth starts with natural resources, oil, gold, arable land. And yes, these help, but they are not guarantees. Take the Democratic Republic of the Congo, one of the richest countries in terms of natural resources, yet it remains one of the poorest by GDP per capita. Meanwhile, Japan has almost no natural resources, yet its economy ranks in the top 5 globally. So how does geography matter? Access to coastlines and navigable rivers has historically played a major role. Countries like the UK, the Netherlands, and Singapore use their ports to become hubs for global trade. Trade leads to money. Money leads to power. Power shapes history. Another factor is climate. Tropical climates have historically struggled with diseases like malaria and parasites, which reduced productivity and life expectancy. In contrast, temperate zones were more favorable for large-scale agriculture and industrialization. But perhaps the biggest geographical advantage: proximity to other wealthy nations. If you're surrounded by thriving economies, you tend to rise with them. Think of Europe or East Asia. Still, geography is just the starting point. It's what you do with your geography that counts. Chapter 2. Institutions, the real engine of wealth. Economists Darren Acemoglu and James A. Robinson, in their groundbreaking book, Why Nations Fail, argue that wealth doesn't come from resources. It comes from institutions. What are institutions? They are the systems and structures that govern a country: laws, property rights, political systems, and economic policies. Let's compare two Koreas, North and South. Same culture, same history, same geography, but radically different institutions. South Korea embraced democracy, free markets, and openness to trade. North Korea, a closed-off dictatorship with a command economy. Today, South Korea is a technological powerhouse. North Korea remains one of the most impoverished nations on Earth. Inclusive institutions, where people have rights, access to opportunity, and incentives to work hard, tend to lead to innovation and growth. Extractive institutions, where elites exploit the masses, lead to stagnation. Countries that got rich, they built strong institutions that protected property rights, encouraged education, and rewarded productivity. Chapter 3. Industrialization, the turning point. The Industrial Revolution changed everything. Before the 1800s, nearly everyone on Earth was poor by today's standards. Then came machines, factories, mass production. England was the first to industrialize. Coal-powered factories, textile mills transformed labor, steamships and railroads connected the world. This wasn't just economic change, it was civilizational. Industrialized nations became empires, They colonized, extracted resources, built global markets, and reinvested that capital into more industrialization. Germany, the United States, France, and later Japan followed suit. The wealth gap between industrialized and non-industrialized nations exploded. To this day, countries that industrialized early still dominate the global economy. But latecomers can still catch up if they play it right. Chapter 4. Global Trade. Wealth through connection. In our interconnected world, trade is power. Small nations like Singapore, the UAE, and South Korea use trade to go from poverty to prosperity in a few decades. How? They opened their markets, they specialized, and they made themselves indispensable to global supply chains. Singapore focused on shipping and finance, South Korea on semiconductors and electronics, the UAE on logistics and energy. These countries knew something important. No nation grows rich in isolation. They signed trade agreements, attracted foreign investors, created business-friendly environments, and most importantly, they produced goods and services that the world needed. Globalization is a double-edged sword, but for many countries, it's been the fastest way to escape poverty. Chapter 5. Education, Innovation, and Human Capital. What do the richest countries have in common today? Highly educated populations. The wealth of nations is no longer just about oil or steel. It's about brains. Silicon Valley doesn't run on gold. It runs on code, algorithms, innovation. Countries that invested in education, research, and skills development created the modern tech empires: the US, Germany, South Korea, Israel. This is called human capital, the knowledge and skills of the workforce. Without it, countries remain stuck, exporting raw materials. With it, they create the future. Smart nations fund universities, train engineers, protect intellectual property, and reward innovation. The result? Long-term, sustainable wealth. Chapter 6. Corruption. The silent killer of wealth. Narrator voiceover. Corruption is like a slow poison. No matter how many resources or opportunities a country has, corruption can destroy it all. When public officials steal, when contracts go to friends instead of the best companies, when bribes replace merit, you get stagnation. Investors flee, innovation dies, the people lose faith. Countries like Somalia, Venezuela, and Zimbabwe have seen trillions of dollars evaporate through mismanagement and graft. On the other hand, countries that cracked down on corruption, like Rwanda, Singapore, and Estonia, saw explosive growth. Clean governance isn't just a moral issue, it's an economic one. Trust is the foundation of markets. Without it, everything collapses. Chapter 7. The Role of Colonialism and History. We can't talk about wealth without talking about the past. Colonialism reshaped the world's economy and its inequalities. Europe grew rich by colonizing Africa, Asia, and the Americas. Resources were extracted. Labor was exploited. Economies were restructured to serve colonial powers. Even after independence, many former colonies were left with weak institutions, artificial borders, and economies dependent on a single export. This isn't an excuse, but it is a historical reality. Some countries broke free, others didn't. Those that did, like India or Malaysia, invested in education, built infrastructure, and reformed their institutions. History matters, but it's not destiny. Chapter 8. The Rise of the Middle Class. Narrator voiceover. Wealth isn't just about GDP. It's about people. Countries that became rich didn't just grow their economies, they grew their middle class. The middle class drives consumption, innovation, and social stability. They buy homes, they start businesses, they invest in education. America's golden age in the 20th century, fueled by a thriving middle class. China's economic miracle, lifting 800 million people out of poverty and creating the world's largest middle-income population. When wealth is shared, not hoarded, nations thrive. Inequality, however, can lead to unrest, stagnation, and political instability. The most successful countries invest in health, education, housing, and wages, creating a foundation for everyone to grow. Chapter 9. Strategic Vision and Leadership. Sometimes, a country's wealth comes down to vision. Visionary leaders can steer nations from collapse to prosperity. Think of Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, a tiny nation with no resources, surrounded by hostile neighbors. Yet with planning, discipline, and global partnerships, it became a financial giant. Or the Nordic countries, Denmark, Sweden, Norway. With long-term planning, democratic governance, and high taxes funding strong welfare systems, they built some of the happiest, richest societies on Earth. Vision matters. Not every leader thinks in 10-year plans, but those who do change history. Chapter 10. Today's richest countries. What do they have in common? Let's look at the top 10 richest countries by GDP per capita. Places like Luxembourg, Switzerland, Norway, Singapore, and Ireland. What do they all have in common? Stable governments, strong education systems, low corruption, high-value exports or services, global integration. Even tiny countries can be rich if they focus on innovation, invest wisely, and maintain peace. The lesson? Size doesn't matter. Strategy does. Conclusion. The blueprint of wealth. So, how do countries get rich? There's no single answer, but patterns emerge. Strong institutions, smart education, honest governance, openness to trade, investment in people, strategic thinking, and the ability to adapt. History plays a role, geography plays a role, but choices matter most. Every rich nation was once poor. Every poor nation has the potential to grow. It's not easy. It takes decades, sometimes generations. But the blueprint exists. And in an age of global connection, the next economic miracle could come from anywhere. Maybe even the place you're watching from right now. Thanks for watching Luxona, where future millionaires are made. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insight-driven documentaries. Until next time, stay curious.